Hello and welcome to this edition of Weir Wednesdays, as we take a closer look at work in the Samuel E. Weir collection at RiverBrink. My name is Deborah Antonczyk, and I'm the Director-Curator at RiverBrink Art Museum. Today we're looking at this landscape by Francis Hans, later Franz Johnston. It is one of 4 works by the artist in the Weir collection. Sam Weir purchased the gouache on illustration board in an auction in 1938. The location is unknown, but it's clearly a settler landscape indicated by the fence posts we see in the foreground and on the left. When it was purchased, it was titled Autumn Landscape, then later called Laurentian Landscape, but we know it as simply Landscape. The artist, Francis Hans Johnston, was born in 1888 in Toronto. He apprenticed as a jewelry designer and attended Central Tech, a Toronto high school, where he studied with Gustav Hahn, then at the Ontario College of Art with William Cruikshank and George Agnew Reid. Johnston studied for 3 years in Germany, then in 1907 joined a graphic design firm in Toronto, Brigden's Limited. This photograph of the artist by M.O. Hammond is dated 1930, so around the time he completed Landscape. By 1912, Johnston was off to study in Philadelphia at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, and then to New York, where he worked as a commercial artist for Carlton Studios. While in New York, Johnston attended the International Exhibition of Contemporary Art, known today as the Armory Show in New York in 1913. This exhibition quite famously introduced a North American audience to contemporary art from Europe and America, to the avant-garde trends of Cubism, Fauvism. And here I'm showing Nude Descending a Staircase by Marcel Duchamp, one of the well-known works and well-commented on works to come to New York. Johnston's response to the more than 1,300 artworks in the show is unknown, but it was likely an exhilarating experience for an aspiring artist. Returning to Toronto in 1915, Johnston moved to another graphic design studio, Grip, where he met future members of the Group of 7, Fred Varley, J.E.H. MacDonald, and Arthur Lismer. And here, in a photograph from 1920, Johnston is seated with not only those members, but other additional members who had joined the group, A.Y. Jackson and Lauren Harris. Johnston continued to work in graphic design for some time and moved to Roux and Mann, another Toronto firm. Following his return to Toronto, Johnston exhibited with the Ontario Society of Artists and began to paint landscapes in and around Toronto, starting with the Don and Humber Valleys, and then off to further east to Bon Echo and the Kawarthas, before traveling quite a bit further north to Hearst in 1917. And here I'm showing a Northern Night, which is a depiction of the Aurora Borealis based on studies that Johnston made, studies that he completed while in Hearst in 1917, and it was acquired by the National Gallery that year. Johnston continued to produce commercial designs, but was persuaded to look further north for suitable landscape subjects, along with other members of the group. In 1918, Johnston was commissioned to paint the home front for the Canadian War Memorials Fund. He was assigned the fledgling Air Corps, and during evenings and weekends, he sketched training camps in Southern Ontario, including aircraft in various maneuvers, some of which he developed into paintings such as this one, Looking South over Camp Borden, now in the collection of the War Museum in Ottawa. These flight training schools would supply partially trained artists for the Royal Air Force in Britain. In the late summer of 1918, Johnston traveled to the wilderness of the Algoma region near Sault Ste. Marie with artist Lauren Harris, J.E.H. MacDonald, and art patron Dr. Dr. James McCallum. This is one of his more accomplished works from this trip, titled Fire Swept Algoma from 1920 from the National Gallery of Canada collection. Although it shows this panorama of a northern scene in Ontario with this devastated landscape, it seems to recall the devastation of the war in Europe. In May of 1920, Johnston participated in the first exhibition held by the Group of Seven at the newly expanded Grange in Toronto, the future Art Gallery of Toronto and now the Art Gallery of Ontario. Building designed by Darling and Pearson in a Beaux-Arts style in 1918, I'm showing you in this photograph. The exhibition attracted more than 2,000 visitors in just 3 weeks, but few sales. Johnston also exhibited in solo exhibitions at the Art Gallery of Toronto and at the Eaton's Art Gallery that same year. But in 1921, he moved with his family to Winnipeg, to a job as the principal of the Winnipeg School of Art and to head up the Winnipeg Art Gallery. And here I'm showing you one of his paintings completed during this period, titled Serenity, Lake of the Woods from 1922 in the Winnipeg Art Gallery. And here, I think it's important to note the title Serenity is typical of some of Johnston's titles, where he would apply a more lyrical title than simply naming it as a particular place, such as Lake of the Woods. Johnston exhibited some 400 paintings at the Art Gallery of Winnipeg in 1923, but returned to Toronto in 1924 and formally resigned from the Group of Seven. Once back in Toronto, he taught at the Ontario College of Art, where his daughter Frances Anne and future son-in-law Franklin Arbuckle would become students. There were lingering questions regarding his separation from the group, but he remained on friendly terms and exhibited in commercial galleries. Our landscape dates to this period of the late 1920s. It has a lighter palette, somewhat closer to Impressionism, a period style that Weir admired very much. And here, just by point of contrast, I'm showing you another work from our collection by the Impressionist Armand Guillaumin, one of the lesser known Impressionists, but as an indication of this kind of soft palette and Impressionist-inspired landscape that Sam Weir admired. As I mentioned, landscape was purchased at an auction in Waterloo, Ontario in 1938. It was an item in a sale of the contents of the estate of Edward F. Seagram, the president of the Seagram Distillery and a former mayor of Waterloo, who had passed away the previous year. Weir's copy of the catalog, which I'm showing you here, contains numerous annotations by Weir, and apparently he was interested in more than just the paintings, but also acquired some furniture and other household effects and took careful notes of all the things that were for sale and the prices that were realized. In the early 1960s, by then the idea of an art museum as his legacy was well established, and Weir purchased 2 additional works to add to the collection he was building in Queenston, 2 additional works by Franz Johnston, this one titled Bell Rapids and the Bell River, Rouen, Quebec. Both of these works undated. They're both from the area of northern Quebec near the Ontario border. Both are more typical of the northern landscape that we associate with members of the Group of Seven. We see this screen of trees in front of a body of water and a distant shore, and the fall colors, the autumn colors, very typical of northern Ontario and northern Quebec, and these landscape views that we associate with the Group of Seven. Johnston was very prolific and his work was popular with the public. His careful compositions and strength in design attest to his training and experience in commercial art and illustration. When Johnston passed away in 1949, he had enjoyed a successful career, which is not an easy accomplishment in the Canadian art world. Thank you for watching, and if you have enjoyed this and other videos in the series, please visit our website, www.riverbrink.org, to donate. Thank you.